Yeah, I'm not going to lie. These guys had great preseasons, and some of them I thought were incredible values in drafts a month ago. Well, now that they were so much more in fantasy football, I think it's an intriguing thought process and just asking, okay, if we can sell them, should we explore that option? For instance, if we look at Khalil Herbert, a month ago, this man was the running back 40 in underdog drafts, and it made so much sense to continuously take him at that price point because we know the Chicago Bears are going to be extremely run heavy. And while, yeah, they bring in both D'Onta Foreman as well as Roschon Johnson, hook 'em horns, we know that, yes, Herbert is most likely going to be the starting running back for the Chicago Bears. So if you're getting him at RB40, that's a price point you can be pretty damn excited about, and I'm going to continuously draft him there over the other options when you're comparing him to guys like Nico Collins. It was crazy that a month ago that you would even consider taking Nico Collins over Khalil Herbert in a draft. Now, he did have a great preseason where obviously he went out there, he put on some Twitter highlights. He was the primary starting running back with the first team reps that you had for the Chicago Bears this preseason. But it wasn't like it was just all perfect news for Khalil Herbert, right? I mean, it was a little bit good, little bit bad. What is most concerning is that it actually looks like Roschon Johnson has already cemented himself to be the 3-down running back in Chicago. And if we just think about this objectively, we should have always expected that, of course, Khalil Herbert's at least the starter at the beginning portion of the season. I mean, Roschon is a rookie. D'Onta Foreman just came to this team and this coaching staff this offseason. So the expectation should have always been that Khalil Herbert was the starting running back. But the concern that you have is maybe a player like Roschon Johnson looks to continue to expand his role as the season progresses. And the fact that Roschon has already gone out there and wiggled his way into the 3rd down receiving back in this offense does concern me slightly. Now, of course, I think that Roschon Johnson doesn't eat in enough for Khalil Herbert's now a bad pick in fantasy football drafts. If he was still going at RB40, I would still be drafting the hell out of him. Now, the issue is with Khalil Herbert, this is a running back that has jumped so many other options that you could call exciting in fantasy football drafts. He now goes ahead of a running back like Brian Robinson, goes ahead of A.J. Dillon, and is right now going back-to-back with Dalvin Cook in these underdog drafts as the running back 32 and the running back 31. So I just want to reevaluate and say, okay, well, with Herbert, would it possibly make more sense to sell him for someone like Dalvin Cook if we expect with both these backs, they see their largest work at the beginning portion of the season and then possibly have more running back competition added in later on the year as both Breece Hall as well as Roschon Johnson continue to expand their role. But the difference is maybe with someone like Dalvin Cook, we've seen the elite level production before, while at the same time he's going to be in a much better offense. Now, if we look at Herbert, he has been hyper efficient in Chicago, but he hasn't really ever had a super large workload. Last year was his best season where he averaged about 9.9 carries per game. And if you look at the first 2 years of his NFL career, and we put that in the road of his screener to get a sense of all running backs since the year 2000 that had similar career starts to Roschon Johnson, you had an elite level running back that everybody's going to run to in Derrick Henry. Yes, if y'all remember, DeMarco Murray was there early on in Tennessee. But you also had Cameron Artis-Payne, Alfred Blue, and Cedric Houston. Now, in my mind, if we had to come up with a comp for Khalil Herbert, I would call him half Derrick Henry, half Cameron Artis-Payne, where I think it's going to be a 1st and 2nd down back. It's probably a low-end RB2 in fantasy, where if we could sell him and possibly get someone that you're excited about with a little more upside, DeAndre Swift, Isaiah Pacheco, Dalvin Cook, I think that could be appealing just considering the fact his price has gone up so much. Now, our next guy, please do not hate me for Tank Dell. Yes, look great. I understand. And yes, he's actually risen about 3 to 4 rounds in underdog fantasy football drafts right now. And I will say in underdog drafts, you could possibly go through and roster Tank Dell if you really want to, right? I mean, because if you draft a wide receiver as your wide receiver 6, 7, and 8 on underdog fantasy, and instead of them being a wide receiver 7 in fantasy, if they're like the wide receiver 30 from a points per game perspective, they may actually really help you out and they may actually win you a lot of money on underdog. But in your regular shallow redraft format, someone like Tank Dell has so low of a ceiling that he will never move the needle for you. And I know you're going to hate me saying this, and I know everybody's going to try to come to an outlier scenario and say, of course, Mason, a 5'8", 165-pound wide receiver can have success in the NFL. It's not black and white. Okay, I agree. He has some appealing things on his prospect profile. I mean, he was very productive in college. He did go in round 3 of the NFL draft. But if we look at every wide receiver, 165 pounds and younger since the year 2000 to have 100 fantasy points in a season, you had Taylor Gabriel doing it a couple times, and you had J.J. Nelson. The best season we have ever seen from a wide receiver this small was 153 fantasy points in a full PPR format. That's fewer than 10 points per game, and that is the best we have ever seen. His ceiling is not high enough to ever move the needle. Please just drop him. If you have him in a regular redraft format and instead you can go out there and pick up a super deep running back, I mean, even if you're not that excited about Deonta Foreman, even if you're not that excited about Kareem Hunt, just pick him up and see what happens at the beginning of the season. Now, our next guy, Deuce Vaughn, is someone else that I've seen everybody rostering. And very similar. I understand everybody's going to come out and go, Mason, he looked so good in the preseason. Mason, do you not remember Darren Sproles? Well, guys, Deuce Vaughn's 5'5", 179 pounds. Darren Sproles, when he came into the NFL, was at least bigger than that. And I know Darren Sproles was tiny, right? He was 5'6", 185. Yeah, so you're looking at Deuce Vaughn as a smaller Darren Sproles that is significantly less athletic as well. Deuce Vaughn ran a 4.61 40-yard dash. If you're going to be successful in the NFL at the running back position with slower than a 4.61, you need to weigh 220. You need to weigh 230 pounds. I mean, if we go through and look at every running back since the year 2000 that weighed 179 pounds or fewer to post 100 fantasy points in a season, you had one guy doing it. And that was Dexter McCluster. In 2011, he scored 142 points in a season. That's about 8 points per game. So historically speaking, the absolute ceiling for Deuce Vaughn is about 10 points per game. He will not move the needle. He will not make a difference in your fantasy football league. Please don't waste a roster spot. Go out there and find another running back you can pick up off the waiver wire. Now, going over to our next guy, I know everybody's going to hate us for this, so please hear me out, and then you can go to the comment section and you can tell me how much of an idiot I am and what I'm missing. And of course, if you think I'm stupid, put your money where your mouth is. I mean, I'm drafting every single night on this live stream in Underdog Fantasy drafts. They're best ball drafts, so no time commitment at all during this season. So I drafted 700 teams and won $150,000 on Underdog. Not going to replace your main fantasy football league, just going to be some extra fun on the side. And if you sign up to Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. Plus, you'll get our 2023 fantasy football rankings, a free trial to flockfantasy.com where you can find our 2023 fantasy football draft guide. And only with promo code FLOCK are you going to get set up with an exclusive pick'em. Josh Allen more than less than half a passing yard against the Jets week 1. So please make sure you're taking advantage of that. But now we're going to go over and look at Darren Waller. Now, Darren Waller last year was very bad. Darren Waller last year had a 13% team target share on a per game basis in Las Vegas. That is a bad mark, and it is a continued trend of Darren Waller being worse overall across any metric you want to look at. I mean, he's fallen from the tight end 2 to the tight end 6 to the tight end 10 from a points per game perspective. He's fallen from 75 yards a game to 60 yards a game to 43 yards per game. I mean, he's fallen from a 26% team target share to a 23% team target share, down to a 14% team target share. He's fallen from 2.4 to 1.8 to 1.6 yards per route run. Darren Waller is on the decline, and as a 31-year-old tight end, this is naturally what you expect. You don't expect everybody to be Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is a 1 in a million type player. He is truly generational. He's historic. The expectation's not Darren Waller turns into Travis Kelce at 34 years old, right? And if we go through and we get a sense of every tight end in their age 30 season to have a similar year to what we just saw with Darren Waller, what I did is I took his points per game. I went and looked at everybody that was 20% worse, 20% better. I looked at his targets per game. Everybody that was 20% worse, 20% better. His receiving yards per game, 20% worse, 20% better. This is with the RotoViz screener for all tight ends age 30 going back to the year 2000. You had Jimmy Graham, who was obviously way better than Darren Waller ever was at his peak. And Jimmy Graham went out there and declined the following season, only averaging 10.7 points per game. You had Todd Heap going from 10 points per game down to 8.3. You had Jacob Tammy going from 8.7 to 7.6. You had Benjamin Watson going from 10.1 to 6.9. You had a decline from 9.5 to 6.2. You had a decline from Logan Thomas of 11.1 down to 6.1. And with Darren Waller, last year he was at 11.3. We don't know what he's going to decline to just yet. I mean, the continued trend of every other tight end at this age with this profile is that they get worse the following season. Now, I'm not saying Darren Waller is going to get worse. I'm not saying that I'm ranking him as the tight end 12 this next season just because he was the tight end 10 last year. I actually expect him to get better. The training camp reports have been great. He was great in the preseason. It's a phenomenal situation with the Giants where there are really nobody else for them to go to. So I'm not going to expect Darren Waller to get worse like every other tight end with this profile at this age since the year 2000. I'm going to expect that Darren Waller is an outlier. He doesn't look like any of these guys. He's actually going to get better. And I'm going to rank Darren Waller up around the tight end 6 mark. But what I'm seeing is people take Darren Waller over TJ Hawkinson. Yes, TJ Hawkinson was a top 5 tight end last year, stepping into his prime. I'm seeing people take him over George Kittle. Yes, George Kittle, who has been a top 5 tight end from a points per game perspective for 3 straight seasons in a row. This kind of hype, because the situation's very good, is a little bit unwarranted in my mind if we're going to go back through and look at the historical data. In my mind, the historical data shows that Waller is a tight end that's falling, and we can get confirmation based on the fact that he was just traded for a 3rd round pick, the same pick Tony was traded. I think that here, more times than not, Darren Waller is going to be a mid tight end 1 this next season, and everybody's screaming at me in the comment section that he's at least the tight end 2, at least the tight end 3 this year. I think you will be disappointed. Now, going over to our next guy, we are going to be looking at Jalen Warren. Now, Jalen Warren probably was the most trending guy in the preseason at the running back position. And then he goes out there, he has a couple rushing touchdowns. And you know, Najee Harris, for whatever reason, is the most hated player in fantasy football. The fantasy football community thought they were so smart and they hated on Josh Jacobs and the fact that we were drafting Josh Jacobs nonstop last season for God knows what reason. They're doing the same thing with Najee Harris. Now, I understand Najee Harris a little bit more red flags, not the same as Josh Jacobs last year, but still, everybody hates Najee Harris. So Jalen Warren going out there and having some impressive rushing touchdowns is going to get people pretty amped. And I'm seeing people say that Jalen Warren's better than Najee. I'm seeing people say that Jalen Warren's going to continue to take the role from Najee Harris. I want to reiterate, while Jalen Warren is a handcuff running back you can be excited about in the instance that Najee Harris were to get injured, he is just that. He is the backup. He is the handcuff RB. So if all of a sudden you're having to pay an extreme premium because some people think that they could actually end up starting Jalen Warren even when Najee Harris is healthy, he's going to be a clear sell. Right now he's going as the RB39. I mean, someone after him is Jamal Williams, right? And Jamal Williams, you should be able to use as possibly a high-end RB2 for the first 3 weeks when there's no Alvin Kamara. And after that, he's going to have a larger role than Jalen Warren will. And if Kamara were to go down, he also has the elite handcuff appeal. So yeah, I'd rather have like Jamal Williams over Jalen Warren if I'm going to be honest with you. Just because I think Najee Harris is the clear starter, even if Warren looked good in the preseason. And same thing if we're looking at like Jamal Williams versus Tank Bigsby, right? I see a lot of people pumped about Tank Bigsby. And like we've said all offseason now, Tank Bigsby is going to have a role. And you're going over and looking at the PFF reports, the PFF snap counts. And yeah, Tank Bigsby took 36% of the snaps with the starters, which if you do the math and you look across every single backfield in the NFL, guys like Saquon Barkley, they only really get 70% of their snap share. That's what you're looking for. But what we're primarily trying to see with a player like Travis Etienne is not only him getting about the 70% of snaps, but more importantly, we want all the high value touches. We want the 3rd down looks. We want the short yardage looks. Because if he's in there on 3rd down, he's the guy drawing the targets out of the backfield, while at the same time, he's in there in the short yardage instances, so he's going to be in the red zone, and he's going to have the touchdown upside. Even if he gives 30% of the usage over to Tank Bigsby, you may end up just seeing 30% of the useless touches going to Tank, and instead, you have Travis Etienne in that Saquon Barkley type workload, in the Alvin Kamara type workload, where he is getting used as the receiver and the red zone back. And I think we get confirmation where Travis Etienne plays 100% of snaps on 3rd and 4th down and dominated snaps out of 11 personnel, which is 3 wide receivers on the field. So those are the high value touches that we are looking for, and Travis Etienne is getting those. So in my mind, that should tell us, okay, Etienne should go up in drafts well, Tank Bigsby should go down, but people just read the headline. People don't dive into the actual numbers where the high value touches are and that usage. So you've had Tank Bigsby skyrocketing up these draft boards where now he is also going ahead of someone like Jamal Williams, where I kind of view Bigsby as someone that you're not really going to be able to use outside of a Travis Etienne injury and just a premium handcuff back. So give me Jamal Williams in that instance, right? But I think that's all I have for y'all. Again, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for checking out this video. If you have not done so already, go down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. And of course, if you want to get in a draft with us on the live stream tonight, tomorrow, the next night, the night after, you can find a link to Underdog Fantasy in the description or the comment section of this video. Sign up to Underdog with promo code FLOCK, and they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. Plus, you'll get our 2023 fantasy football rankings, get a free trial to flockfantasy.com where you can find our 2023 fantasy football draft guide. And only with promo code FLOCK on Underdog are you also going to get set up with the exclusive Josh Allen Pick'em special week 1 against the Jets, more than less than half a passing yard. But I think that's all I have for you, ladies and gentlemen. Really do appreciate you, and I really hope I get to see you out with the live stream later tonight.